Hi everyone, welcome to Ms. Sawagid's math class again. To master today's lesson, we will build on what we learned before. And what we learned before is solving multi-step equations and solving equations with variables on both sides, and last, identifying number of solutions. Today's lesson is to solve multi-step inequality. Again, 4 easy steps. If you follow those easy steps, I know you will get your answer right. Step number 1 is to undo grouping symbols such as parentheses. Step number 2 is to combine like terms on the same side as the inequality. Step number 3 is to collect the variables and make sure to collect the variable that has the least coefficient just to avoid negative numbers. Step number 4, use inverse operations to isolate the variable. The only one thing you need to pay attention to for inequalities, when you multiply or divide with negative numbers, make sure to inverse the symbol. Make sure to check your solution using any number from the solution set and graph on the number line if needed. Now let's solve and graph the inequality. I will keep the steps for you to follow. N divided by negative 2 plus 11 more than 12. I need to get rid of the 11 and the negative 2 to isolate n on one side of the inequality. Remember which number is free. Is it the 11 or the negative 2? The 11, because it's by itself. It's a constant. The subtraction property of inequality will get rid of that 11 since I'm adding 11. So subtract 11 from both sides, you end up with n divided by negative 2 more than 1. Since you divided by negative 2, the inverse operation will be multiplication. And the multiplication property of inequality states if you multiply an inequality with a negative number, when c less than 0, then you need to reverse the symbol of inequality. So now multiply both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. You left with n, but now instead of more than, you're going to reverse the sign to less than negative 2. So set of solution is all real numbers less than negative 2. Now, how do you graph this? Bring a number line and use open circle because negative 2 is not a solution, and put it on the number line. And now I need all real numbers less than negative 2. So the arrow should be pointing to all negative numbers less than negative 2 to the left. Now we will solve inequality with variables on both sides. Again, the steps don't change. Here's the equation. Negative 4, parentheses 3n minus 1 is more than negative 12n plus 5.2. First thing, undo grouping symbols. So do I have parentheses? Yes, I do on one side. So use distributive property by multiplying negative 4 times 3n and negative 4 times 1. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12n. Now take the sign with the number. So negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. More than, bring everything else down because there is no grouping symbols, negative 12n plus 5.2. Step number 2 is to combine like terms. There are no like terms. I cannot add 12 and 4 or subtract the 12 and 4 because they're not like terms. So the step number 3 is to collect the variables on one side of the equation using the least coefficient. And they both are the same, so negative 12n, the inverse operation will be to add 12n to both sides of the equation, and you end up with 4 more than 5.2. Is that a true statement? No, that's a false statement, which means no solution. So how can you graph it? You leave the number line alone, don't draw anything on it, but you have to have it. So make the graph, but do not put anything on it. Here's another example of solving inequality with variables on both sides, and the 4 steps are included. 2 times k minus 5 in parentheses less than 2k plus 5. Step number 1, undo grouping symbols. Yes, I do have the parentheses, so distribute the 2 over the 2 terms. It's called distributive property, 2 times k and 2 times 5. Bring the 2 times k is 2k, 2 times 5 is 10, bring the minus down. Then less than 2k plus 5, just bring them down. Now, combine like terms on the same side of the equation. I can't because they're not like terms. I cannot subtract 2 and 10 or add 2 and 5. They're not like terms. So collect the variables on one side of the equation, choose the least coefficient. They both have the same coefficient of 2, and they both positive. So the inverse operation would be to subtract 2k from both sides of the equation. Now 2k minus 2k is 0. Bring the negative 10 down, less than 5. Is that a true statement? Yes, it is, which means all real numbers are a solution. So bring your number line and now draw an arrow going both directions showing all possible real number solutions. Now let's solve real life problem. The question is, you need a mean score of at least 90 points to advance to the next round of the touchscreen trivia game. What scores in the 5th game will allow you to advance? And here are the games you played and the scores you had before. I already underlined what scores because that's the question. Now look for your clues. You always look for your clues to know how to write the inequality. Clue number 1, what are you looking for? What are you trying to find? We're trying to find the score for the 5th game. So I don't know what it is. We gave it a letter X. Clue number 2, at least 90 points. That means the minimum score you can get in the 5th game is 90. You can get more than that, but you can't get less than that. And 90 is a solution. So the symbol of inequality you're using is more than or equal. Now the 3rd clue is mean. If you remember what mean is the average. And how do you find the average of something? You add up all the scores and you divide them by how many games you had. That gives you the average or the mean. So write the equation by adding all the games, 95 plus 91 plus 77 plus 89 plus X, which is the one we don't know, the 5th game, divided by the number of games total number of games you played, which is 5, more than 90. Now, combine like terms, so add up all the numbers in the numerator. That gives you 352 plus X divided by 5 is more than or equal to 90. Now, the multiplication property of inequality, if you multiply in with a positive number, that's C more than 0, you keep the symbol the same. Keep that in mind. Now, to get rid of the free number first. I don't get rid of 352 because I need to add X to it first, but the 5 is free. So multiply both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5, they cancel each other. You left with 352 plus X more than or equal to 90 times 5 is 450. Now to isolate X, I need to get rid of 352. So use the subtraction property of inequality. Subtract 352 from both sides and you end up with X more than or equal to 98. What does that mean? Interpret the solution. Explain what the solution means. So that means you need to score at least 98 points for you to advance to the next level to get an average of 90 points. Now, remember, what are the solutions we talked about? You can have a set of solution. To graph that, use an open or a closed circle with an arrow going one direction, because that shows you one set of solution. If you get a false statement, then there is no solution. To graph that, just put the number line and don't do anything with it. If you end up with a true statement after solving the inequality, then all real numbers are true solutions. So when you graph it, on the graph, put an arrow going both directions to show all real numbers. That's it for today's lesson. You guys have a great day.